On today's episode of What's Going On with Shipping, the Irish Naval Service raided the bulk carrier Matthew and found a significant, and I mean significant, amount of cocaine. I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. So, a lot of stories today about the Irish Naval Service's boarding a bulk carrier, the Matthew, off the southern coast of Ireland and finding nearly 5,000 pounds of cocaine on board. And the fact was that this vessel may have been operating as a mothership and landing cocaine on the shore of Ireland via a small boat. But what I really want to talk about is not just that event, but the problems the Irish Naval Service has with maintaining its fleet. This is a problem we're seeing worldwide among navies and coast guards. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. All right, let's jump into this story. So here's the first story. This is Mike Schuller over at G-Captain. Irish forces raid bulk carrier, find significant quantity of cocaine. I'm not sure what significant means, but to me, 5,000 pounds is pretty significant. This happened on Tuesday. The raid was conducted early Tuesday morning off the coast of Cork. The Irish Naval Defense Forces said the ship had been tracked for several days after traveling from South America. The Irish Navy patrol vessel, William Butler Yeats, and let me be clear about something, the best named vessels in any Navy around the world, you have to put at near the top of the list the Irish Naval Services. I mean, naming naval vessels after poets. Only the Irish can get away with that. Fired warning shots. I have an issue with a poet firing warning shots in the ship's direction before forces stormed the ship by helicopter, apparently as the vessel tried to evade authorities. Goes on, the vessel had been escorted to a naval base at Marino Point in Cork Harbor. AIS tracked the vessel coming from Williamstead in Curacao. BBC is reporting that the police have arrested 3 people and the raid may be related to the grounding of a trawler on Sunday. Daily Mail is reporting that investigators believe the Matthews may have been used as a mothership to transport cocaine to Ireland. Officials later confirmed the seizure of 2,253 kilograms, 4,966 pounds of cocaine worth an estimated 157 million euro or 166 million dollars. Just to be clear, this is not the biggest haul ever taken by sea. For that, you come over to this story about how drug smugglers infiltrated a global shipping giant. This is Mediterranean Shipping and the seizure of the MSC Guyane in 2019 in the port of Philadelphia. 18 metric tons of cocaine valued at over $1 billion. Man, that's going to keep a lot of people up at night. But what I want to talk about is how this story unfolded and a little bit about the Irish Naval Service. Leave it to the Daily Mail to have the best title for this. Ireland braces for Cartel bloodbath after commando raid on Cartel Mothership. Kinahan family linked to, this is a big crime family in Ireland, linked to tanker sent, it's not a tanker, it's a bulk ship, sent by Colombian Gulf clan and Albanians to supply Europe before bungling mobsters blew operation by running aground. Okay, so we've got the Irish mob, we've got Colombians, we've got Albanians, we've got shipping. This is right up our alley here on what's going on with shipping. So let's go ahead and break this down. So this is Matthew, a Panamanian registered bulk carrier built in 2001 in Japan. It is showing to be owned by a company out of the Marshall Islands. It's the only vessel they own. That in itself is not always unusual because a lot of vessels are owned by these single companies so that there's no trace going to them from other places. The ship that stopped them is this vessel right here, the offshore patrol vessel Yeats. Beautiful vessels built by for the Irish Naval Service. Absolutely just outstanding. The Irish Naval Service operates in a kind of concurrent role as the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard does. So they don't have a separate law enforcement agency. Instead, their Irish Naval Service does both of those. Here you see the boarding being done, inserted by helicopter, fast rope down. Bulk carriers are great to go onto, big, huge open hatches, nice big area to come in. This ship can try to avoid as much as they can, but you're not going to get away from a helicopter carrier. Notice Matthew is in a light condition, has not loaded, which could have been an indicator for them why this vessel was coming in. Here you see elements of the Irish commandos and boarding teams on the bridge of the vessel after taking control of it. And this really shows you the amount of drugs that were brought on board. This joint task force that was put together was able to net this and be able to track it. 6 men have been detained, a UK national, 3 Ukrainians, and 2 Iranians have been detained for questioning about this drug bust. 2 were rescued from the small fishing trawler that ran aground on Sunday, and the rest are all involved, plus the crew now is being held on board the vessel as this all unravels. Here's the vessel being brought into the harbor of Kobe, and you can see the Yates right there. It gives you an idea of size of these commercial vessels. But again, you can notice how light the vessel is loaded. So here's a map done by the Daily Mail, which looked at this. So the vessel left around August 18th from Venezuelan waters, again, probably around Curacao, which is actually Dutch, and sailed across. The freighter crossed the Atlantic and spends a week near the Canary Islands. Now, whenever ships linger in places for long periods of time, that will get attention at times. Remember, there are a lot of services that are monitoring and watching ships move around the world through their AIS. These are the transponders, automatic information system that allows you to track vessels. The ship then skirted Spain and France before heading toward Ireland and UK waters. On September 23rd, the ship entered Irish waters. That's within 12 nautical miles, but well within the EEZ. And on September 26th, you see that Irish Army Rangers wing will raid the boat. And this is how it transpired here in the morning. So Saturday morning, at about 5 p.m., you can see the vessel here running just kind of south of Ireland, heading north into the Irish Channel. It is just kind of southeast of Cobh and Cork. Heads up, and Sunday around 12 p.m., it is through the channel. But Sunday night, this is when that fishing trawler ran aground off the north coast of Wexford. That is probably the indicator that they were doing small boat transfers. The vessel is then boarded. After the vessel turned around and was making its exit, Army Rangers will capture the Matthew and then take it into Cobh. This is that small trawler that they were talking about that wound up running aground off the coast of Ireland. What really makes this story particularly interesting for me is the dire straits the Irish Naval Service finds them in. So pulled these stories from over the past year, really documenting this. So this story from August of this year, the Naval Service is left with 2 ships to patrol Irish waters due to a manpower crisis, and raises questions about newly purchased vessels coming from New Zealand. The Irish Naval Service is strapped for personnel. They cannot get people who want to serve in the Naval Service because of jobs and other opportunities that are available to them. And this means that a good chunk of the Irish Naval Service is unable to sail, which means the territorial waters of Ireland out to 12 miles and the economic exclusion zone out to about 200 miles is not being patrolled. And that is a major issue for nations. If they cannot patrol their waters, then they can't really control them. Add to this story right here, secret Russian activity spotted in Irish waters. Russian warships, auxiliary vessels gathered off the coast of Southern Ireland last week, triggering a surveillance operation involving the Irish Naval Service and the UK Royal Navy. There are a ton of undersea cables that run out of Ireland along the floor of the Atlantic. If you go to this site named Submarine Cable Map.com, you don't do better than that, you can see what I'm talking about, the number of cables that run here off the western side of Ireland and then here off the southern side of Ireland through what was sometimes referred to as the western approaches. You can see the number of cables here, or the cables coming across from the Irish Sea. One of the things that we've seen is Russian forces, including Russian vessels capable of cable cutting, having exercises out in this area, identifying these submarine cables. These cables are owned by companies, but they're within the territorial waters and economic waters of countries like Ireland. And without an Irish Naval Service out there patrolling the area, it is very easy for other navies and other forces to get involved in this and potentially sever the cables which do most communication. Understand, when you use your cell phone, you do not call. If I call my buddy in Ireland using my cell phone, the only wireless part of this is from my phone to a cell phone tower, and from my buddy's phone from a cell phone tower to his phone. The rest of it is by string. You, as old as I am, you remember having a phone with those long cords. Well, you still use a cord, because the cord that we use isn't satellites, it's submarine cables. And cables since the 1860s have been what linked us together. And this is a really dangerous scenario here, because when you don't have naval services out patrolling and protecting, then these cables could be in jeopardy. This follow-on story here from the Irish Examiner, just one Navy ship available for massive drug operations. Intelligence sources say there could be potentially billions of euros of cocaine on a seized vessel. Goes on here. Former Irish Navy commander Eugene Ryan, who helped found the Worldwide Anti-Drug Surveillance Center in 2007, said the Navy is so denuded of ships and experienced personnel that they were lucky to pull off the operation with just one vessel. He said that the two major operations he coordinated in 2007 and 2008 required 3 Navy ships to do the job. Mr. Ryan said the single ship on this week's operation was not enough, pointing out that if it had broken down, it could not have gone from the Wexford area to intercept the trawler, then go on to detain the mothership cargo off the Cork coast. This is, again, I think, the really big issue here, in that the Irish Naval Service is operating literally on a shoestring budget, does not have enough forces to operate. It is a very tiny force. It does not contain a big amount of ships. 6 ships right now. There's more coming from the New Zealand Navy that will be built. But again, these ships are not having enough crew being maintained, and therefore the Irish Naval Service is doing something very similar. Just saw a story about the Royal Fleet Auxiliary. These are the civilian manned ships of the Royal Navy not having enough crews. I did a story about the U.S. Navy's civilian shipping military sealift command, where they're offering huge signing bonuses to get people on, but they can't keep them. All navies around the world are suffering this, and we're even seeing this in commercial shipping, where less people are willing to go commercial shipping because of the life involved, because of the long time away from home, the poor conditions, even the money and being out of touch. A huge amount of problems, which means if there are less forces out there to be the cops and patrol the beat of the ocean, then crime like this will become not more common, but rampant if it's not checked. And I think that's a really interesting takeaway from this story. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do it? You can give this a big thumbs up. You can hit the super thanks button down below and contribute to the page, or head on over to Patreon and become a patron of the page. Till our next episode, this is Sal, signing off.